I hope everyone's having a wonderful morning this morning and didn't stay out too late last night. I know Hugh was in real early. I think it was around 2 a.m. or something.
Yeah, something like that.
But he's here today, so that's good. So today, we're going to be talking about exploring New Zealand's internet IP space in style. Let's just get started. I don't know if you guys have read the Crimes Act, but it's really unambiguous. So it says access is pretty much anything, including communicating with or receiving data from. So when you think of a port scan, that's, in no ambiguous terms, accessing a computer. And then it says if you access without authorization, you go to jail. I'm not a lawyer, you may realize, but it's probably illegal until case law says otherwise. I would actually love to be case law on this because I think it'd be a real fun case to take to court. I would say hold off doing it yourself unless you talk to a lawyer or you're full of hubris.
Cool. Hello, I'm Hugh. I'm a security professional, I guess, and yeah.
He doesn't actually have a sore arm, he's just making fun of me, who does.
No, I was riding a scooter yesterday and just fell off.
So in contrast, I'm a 196 IQ hacker, and I annoy people on the internet. I'm really humble. I won the CTF last year, but I gave my prize away because I just want to share my prizes with everyone because of how humble I am. Unrelated, I broke my shoulder recently. So if I need a hand around the conference, just come and help me out. Also, if one more person says, "Oh, go out there and break an arm," it's really annoying. Also, I'm covered in. Okay.
Cool. So today we are going to be talking about a lot of things. We're going to give you a quick intro over some internet scanners. Then we're going to talk about Flaming Penguin.
Cool name, right?
Oh, it's good. It's good. We're going to tell you about why we built it. We're going to teach you, we're going to talk about the architecture because it's kind of interesting. We got some plugins, we had some problems, and we're going to show you what New Zealand looks like.
I think you're on this slide.
Oh, this is me?
We don't have our speaker notes up, so we can't see.
I thought this
so
was you. So brief history of some scanners. MMAP is old, everyone's used MMAP. We've also got Census, SHODAN, MASCAN, and ZMAP. So these are a bunch of scanners. It's just going to be attached forever.
I was trying to get rid of it. I couldn't do it. Thank you.
So yeah, these were all inspirations for our little tool, Flaming Penguin.
Mm-hmm. Some specific inspirations were the Carna botnet. If you saw the internet census of 2012, this was one piece of research that I read that I was like, damn, that is the coolest thing I have ever seen. So for those who don't recall or possibly weren't on the internet around that time, someone basically created a botnet that used root admin, and blank passwords and scanned for embedded devices, routers, that kind of thing, and created a botnet from it. So it's kind of a precursor to the mid-eye botnet, if you know that one, and kind of the subsequent ones that came after that. But all they used it for was performing a census of the internet. So they built this botnet. The engineering that went into it is really amazing. If you think about using embedded devices and that kind of thing, how you pull down scans of the entire internet, pretty much all the data you can collect. So really great engineering. If you haven't read it, it's mirrored. You can read it. I definitely recommend it. Though, of course, it was an illegal botnet, but still a great inspiration. So they produced things like this. So it wasn't just collecting the data, they produced graphics like this. It's a little bit hard to see the day-night line, but this is showing average utilization of IP addresses based on whether they respond to ping through the day-night cycle. And so this is an example of the kind of data that they could collect and kind of show whether people stayed up past the day-night line or whether they didn't, and all that kind of useful information. Another inspiration was Low Hanging Kiwi Fruit. So that was built by Metalstorm, who works at Insomnia, now part of CyberSex. So he built the first version around 2009 or so, and that was Python-based, stored everything in MongoDB. And so one thing about that was, in contrast to Shodan or something, Low Hanging Kiwi Fruit would scan on demand. So he would let out a gigabit of packets across New Zealand, and then get the results back, and then the scan would be done. it's a little bit longer than that, but still. Eventually that included Australia and Luxembourg, started with just New Zealand. And I did actually ask him many times. I went back through my IRC logs, and there was at least 5 times I was like, hey, Metal, why don't you give me the source code? He was like, oh, it's real easy to build, just do it yourself. He lied. He definitely lied. So this is what Low Hanging Kiwi Fruit looked like back in the day. I don't know if he maintains it anymore. I certainly don't have access anymore. Maybe he doesn't trust me.
So that's where we came and decided we would just build our own. We called it Flaming Penguin. The name just came from GitHub auto-suggest.
Yeah, you know when you put in like Project 1, then it's like, how about something that's actually interesting? That's what came up with this one.
And we got a sweet logo, which we just stole off the internet yesterday. I mean, months ago when we were doing our slides. This is what it looks like. We'll give a little demo soon.
Well, let's start that demo right now. So we do have to unplug the laptop very briefly because occasionally people in New Zealand host pornographic material and that kind of thing, and we checked and the organizers are not cool with that. So, you know, tell them about the TV in our office.
Yeah, we've got a massive TV in the ZX office, and it sometimes shows explicit images, I guess.
Yeah, our boss didn't know that until last night when we were telling him why the TV's off sometimes. Okay, I'm just waiting for the internet. No internet.
No internet, mate.
Okay, let's, got to do some SSH tunneling. Quick, tell them a story while we're waiting.
Story is Stephen is logging in.
I got 2FA on my SSH because I'm a good boy.
Yeah, we got 2FA. And we're typing in the 2FA. You can't see it also.
1, 1, 1.
Oh, that's just your password, isn't it? Right.
Okay.
Then check
Access.
whether it has it.
Now, check for material we shouldn't see.
Ooh.
Wait for it to load.
Oh, that's juicy.
Oh, looks all good.
That's juicy.
So, okay, here we are. Okay. We'll just wait for it to flick over, and then we'll begin.
Yeah. Do. Your time for a story.
Oh, it's already working.
Saved by the bell.
First. So this is the screenshot viewer. So of course, on things like Shodan, things like Low Hanging Kiwi Fruit, we have screenshots. These are some of the most interesting things to go through. Sorry, the mouse is a bit glitched out. I didn't think this would happen. But so, what was it? Dunstan High School. I don't know where that is, but it's somewhere.
Oh, yeah, and they had an intranet on the internet.
Yeah, that's an intranet there. So this is the kind of thing you can see as you go through. So because this is live, we couldn't really show you anything particularly interesting, so we have some more interesting stuff later. You may be surprised about the number of Draytech routers in New Zealand. There are a lot of them. We'll go through exactly how much.
A lot, yes.
So if we just go back to the main page, we'll see that thing we saw before. So this is, you can scan a particular IP if you want it really up to date, because of course scanning New Zealand takes a long time. You can do still searches as well. So let's do a search for all the New Zealand government stuff that we can find. So that, I have to look at the documentation every time, is cert.dns name with a regular expression. Okay, see if it auto-completes for us. Oh yeah. And here we are. So this is an example of using it to look at what things are available with a particular DNS name. And it shows little screenshots there, shows us the IP address, when it was last scanned, and then we can click on one of these to see a little bit more information. So someone, ICC, I don't even know what that department is, they have a Sophos user portal open. I guess it's Invercargill City Council. And this is an example of something they have publicly on the internet that we can find searching by DNS. So that is a little example of how Flaming Penguin works. So jumping into it.
Yeah, sounds good. Do you want the other mouse?
No, it's fine. We'll make do.
He said the trackpad glitches out, and he assured me that this cable here would fix it.
Alas, I guess I need a new laptop. You hear that, boss?
Anyway, so that was our demo. We might come back to more demos later. But yeah, why did we build this?
Do you want me to do this?
This one wasn't yours.
A client asked us to build something that can scan a /10. So if you guys have used Nmap before, for example, or Nessus, especially Nmap, it can scan a /10 easily, but then how do you view the results? What do you actually do with that once you've got the /10 scanned? /10 has some million IP addresses in it or something like that, and so we needed to be able to scan this regularly, analyze the results. Nmap is not a tool that will let you do that. You need something else on top of that. You have tools like Nessus, but it's not very nice. I don't know if you guys have used Nessus, but it's not a nice tool to be using. And it's also cool as heck. Like, if you have the opportunity to build something like this, it's like a really fun learning experience.
Yeah,
so,
it was real fun building it.
Yeah, basically we got paid to do something fun, which is the best thing.
So what we needed for this, well, what we wanted, required, whatever, we wanted to be able to use a bunch of tools from the internet, because like, hey, like security has a lot of open source tools and like just cool tools that we can use, and we want to make it so we can extend it. We add whatever tool we want. We want to be able to scan large networks. We want it to be resilient, not crashing. We'll talk more about crashing later. Speed isn't too much of a priority, so we'll just kick off a scan, leave it, and come back whenever we want. And we also want an interface that we can see the data that we get. So the architecture that we've got, do you want to cover this?
It's your choice.
Oh, I don't know.
I'll do it.
All right.
So it's distributed using 0MQ. So if you think back to Low Hanging Kiwi Fruit, that uses, I think, a Celery or Rabbit MQ. We have a similar system using 0MQ. Very nice. And so the idea behind that is what we really want is a system where things can die, crash, be hit by cosmic rays, shelled, and just we don't care about it. We can just kill them off. It uses Nmap currently, and so the reason behind that is it means less code to write. So we have alternatives like mass scan, which we have implemented, but when you do a big scan with mass scan, you get very limited information back. You get basically whether the port is up or down for a given IP address and port. We really like the extra information Nmap gives us, and the less code we can write, the better. So that really helps with that. As I said, support for mass scan. And then we store it all in MongoDB, which I'm still not sure if it's a mistake.
It works.
It works most of the time, but it's such a horrible database to work with. It's one of those things where I'm like, surely this is the ideal use case. We implement it, and it's like, and every step of the way, we're like, maybe we should go back to something like Postgres. But here we are using MongoDB, and it's all denormalized in there.
We were debating having Postgres as well as Mongo.
Yeah. Because that's, of course, as every enterprise knows, the solution to your problems is to add more technology onto it. 2 databases, twice as good. So we used Golang for writing most of the core components. For those who haven't used Golang, it's really nice threading and kind of IPC. So if you ever need to do something where you're going to need threads, I recommend something like Golang. Some people would say Rust, they're heathens, don't listen to them. Golang is definitely the language you want to be using.
But then we can also put plugins in any language. So I think we've got some plugins in like Node and some plugins in Lua, I guess.
Yeah, we've got some other plugins. And that's one of the advantages of using something like 0MQ here, where the transport for sending messages is completely agnostic to the languages we use.
Yeah. Cool. Here's a nice little screen diagram that we built about a month ago, I think.
Yeah, not last night. So one of the things with this as well, if we look at the overall architecture, I think it's big enough to see, is that each of these boxes, circles, hexagons, cylinders, can be running in a different part of the world, theoretically. So when we talk about scanning the internet, it's really nice that we could launch something up in Linode in the States, we could launch something here in SiteHost, we could launch something wherever we want and get a scan performed, and then it all comes back to the centralized place. And so that's really one of the nice things about an architecture like this. It's not super clear from this, but the way it works is that when one of the Nmap scanners or mass scan scanners find something, they'll just send a message being like, hey, this port was open. And then it's up to the plugin system to decide, hey, I care about that port being open, I care about that IP address being open. And so the way you write a plugin with this is you just say, hey, I care about all the port 80 things, or you say, I care about all the HTTP services. And then those plugins just subscribe to those channels, and they can do anything they want with them.
Works seamlessly. I like it. So plugins we've made, Nmap, of course, so we need to be able to scan things, and Nmap was kind of the easiest one to use, and it's a good tool. It is also kind of good because Nmap in itself has a bunch of plugins, so we can have a plugin that runs Nmap plugins, which we do for some things. We've also got a screenshotter, which you've seen in the demo, so we can get HTTP screenshots, more protocols to come, so like RDP and like VNC and just whatever. We've also got one that checks whether there's anonymous SMB shares around, but that's disabled by default because I guess it refers back to that Crimes Act page. We've got a sweet little Citrix vulnerability detector for that sweet Citrix bug.
Yeah, that was the one that came out back in 2020 that surely everyone has patched from, but we will see whether that is the case very soon.
Yeah. And we've also got a TLS certificate information retriever, so we can get a bunch of data out of the TLS certificates and do searches on there and all sorts of stuff.
So we actually had another plugin we were working on yesterday afternoon, which was that WebLogic bug that some of you may be familiar with since you had to patch it yesterday. But it's one of those things where if we then talk about that plugin here, I've heard that the patch is not sufficient at the moment and there might need to be another one, and I don't want to make anyone's lives harder. But it does go back to the idea of how easy plugins are to write. Deploying one that checks for that WebLogic bug is easy. Checking then across all of New Zealand is easy, and then if you were an attacker, you would already be owned. So I think a tool like this really demonstrates how easy it is to go from, well, you've put the investment in, and now I have a botnet. Like that, really easy to transition to that.
So we ran into some problems during this little project. One of the first ones, I guess, was when we were doing the SMB plugin, I think. We were using Mmap to do the SMB stuff. The version that ships with Ubuntu doesn't support modern versions of Windows, so we were running bleeding edge Mmap for a while.
I heard a real good joke the other day. It's a little bit unrelated. I was on an IRC channel and someone said, how dare you remove this package from my distro after it hasn't been maintained for 11 years? There should be a museum for pieces of software like this. And someone said, oh yeah, that's Debian stable.
Yeah, pretty much. We also had Mmap crashing. Might be because we were running bleeding edge, who knows?
Yeah, I guess Mmap is one of those pieces of software where you come to rely on it so much that when it crashes, it's really like, what? How can Mmap crash? It's been developed for so many years, and you expect it to be reliable, and then it just crashes all the damn time.
Yeah, just all the sig faults. It was real hard to debug, and I guess we just let it happen.
Yeah, well, it's easier to let it crash, isn't it? It's part of the architecture. It's like, if it crashes, we don't really care. So we just start it again, let it happen. It's okay.
Yeah. And it remembers whether it has scanned, so if something crashes and comes back up, it'll be like, oh, I haven't actually finished scanning that, so I'll do it. Mm-hmm. We also had a bit of a problem because we were scanning a /10, and how do we tell the system to just scan a /10? So we actually chunked it all up and made it smaller little scans that we can do, because one thing we found was when we're scanning a whole subnet, it might be all down and it'll just take forever. So you're better off randomizing it and make it a bit more efficient.
Yeah, so that's, I guess, one of the trade-offs, especially in contrast to something like masscan, where it will randomize ports. We end up being a lot less stealthy in our case because we just scan a big chunk at one time, but it's also faster with how we have it set up. So there's a lot of these trade-offs that you end up coming up against as you're developing it.
Mm. One particular ISP, 2 degrees, I guess, weirdly, all the ports show open, just across their entire IP range.
I think if a lot of people have been running Mmap scans, you come across that quite often, where you have a stateful firewall that just trips at the hair trigger and then uses results.
And that's new. What do you mean by that?
Oh, I added that last night. I mean 2 weeks ago. One of the real big problems we have is that when you have this much data, if you think about the structure of it, it's not super structured. So for example, you can say, well, an IP address has services that are open and those are port numbers and they're either open or closed. Then you get down to, well, it's not really open or closed. And then you're like, what about historical scans? What about if the time a plugin runs is different to the time the initial scan happened and you need to attach a screenshot, for example? The screenshot technically wasn't taken at the time the scan was. So do you take it and store it in a new record, or do you put it on the same record? And so these kind of nitty-gritty details. I think Middle said it was really easy to scan, for example. He meant it's really easy to do the initial part. Scripting Nmap is really easy. Storing that in the database is really easy. Everything beyond that gets progressively harder because the kind of data you're working with is so unstructured and so messy by its nature that you don't have a good way to store it. You don't have a good way to query it. which is what we hoped MongoDB would help with, and it hasn't. But, Let's talk about the state of New Zealand.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, don't infect me. There's a sad face there, as we were about to see.
What's this?
This is a microtik from, what year is that?
2013.
2013. There's a lot of bugs in the microtik stuff from back then. Also, I'll say, like, Shodan safaris aren't fun because a lot of it's like foreign stuff I don't care about. But all this New Zealand stuff is super fun because it feels like, oh, I could totally build this botnet.
Yeah, pretty
So I
much.
know I'm saying that a lot. I haven't actually done it. Please don't arrest me.
Got some Dre Tech. Oh, 2013.
2013.
Pretty old. 2016.
Yeah, this one's interesting because that's like an HP ILO, which haven't been known to have the best security. And then it's also one of the things you're like, hang on, how did this even get on the internet? Like, how badly do you have to misconfigure your network to get in this state in the first place?
There were quite a few of these, weren't there?
There's like, I think less than 100,
That's
which
still
might
quite
sound
a few.
bad, but it's actually very good.
A lot of printers.
The printers. I especially like
So
this
many
one.
printers.
It says, please configure a password. It's like asking you. It's like, hey, just so you know, you might want to put a password on this. Also, I think as a pen tester, we realize these printers seem not interesting until you realize you can shell them and pivot to the internal network, or you can pull off any documents that have been printed, that kind of thing.
All the creds and stuff like that.
Yeah, people often connect them to like Active Directory, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, printers are good. If you find a printer, definitely hack it.
It's another one of those questions where you're like, how did they get that on the internet? Like, did they plug that directly into an ONT? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. This
Um,
one's a little fun one.
Yeah, so as we move into the, I guess, more scary stuff. So this is a tank gauge and alarm system. And I guess on one hand, this is a read-only system, right? But on the other hand, this is an alarm system. This is the thing that's designed to tell you when it's empty, when it's full, when something's going wrong. Here it is on the internet.
It's weirdly on the internet.
This is,
This 100 plus, it needs filling up, I reckon. Half empty.
yeah, so this is a truck stop in Redacted. And we have all the tank data here. I don't know, this is the kind of system where I think if you looked into it, you'd be like, maybe I can do some stuff here. But initially, it just gives you that visceral reaction of, once again, why is this on the internet?
Yeah.
And I think in the case of like a remote truck stop, we can kind of figure that out. It's like, well, they needed to access it somehow, and they just put it on the internet. And they're like, no one would scan the internet, would they? This is an unnamed supermarket. Don't look too hard.
I didn't actually notice the background to start.
Yeah. Turns out a lot of supermarkets have a lot of refrigerator systems, heating systems, and for some reason they're all on the internet. This one I don't exactly understand. It doesn't make sense to me. But once again, you could have a little look at those.
Another little one there.
Yeah, really similar system. Oh, what's this? This is a POS system directly on the internet.
Who
Are you
wants
hungry
some
here?
pizza? Oh, yeah. Should we order a pizza?
I like how there's no authentication on it, which kind of makes sense that, like, if you were in the store, you wouldn't have authentication. But it does make you wonder, hang on, their store computers are just, like, loading this thing from the internet? I don't know. You got to imagine this one did not have a risk analysis performed on it before they threw into it.
Oh, cheesy garlic pizza. Simply cheese. Oh, truffle veg. Sounds. There were some more stuff that we were thinking of including, but like a lot of webcams, like so many webcams.
A lot of webcams. But I guess you get into privacy invasive issues at that point where, on one hand, if there's a webcam on the internet, it's like fair game. And on the other hand, you're like, oh, I can see inside that person's house. Maybe we shouldn't be looking at this.
There
Like,
was that one that had the presets, looking in the neighbours' houses.
yes, there have been some people who set up their cameras in very naughty ways.
Yeah,
You normally don't set it up pointing in someone else's house, but this guy did.
pretty much. Do we want more demo?
Yes, I think we have more time to go, so let's do a little bit of demo.
Sounds good.
So here is a sweet demo, which is showing kind of, sorry, let me get my mouse working, how the plugin system lets us do things like, ooh, what's going on?
Did you want this mouse?
Oh no, did my SSH die? Oh, it did. Okay. I'm going to just restart this SSH session. Give me a minute. The internet in here is not great. We got any more stories while we're doing this?
Stories. Why'd the chicken cross the road?
I don't think this one's very good.
It's not. I don't actually have a punchline for it, so.
Damn it. I guess we can talk about the Citrix stuff for a while.
Yep.
I guess one of the interesting things about building this, for me, has been seeing how something like the Citrix bug is just not patched for so long. Coming from pen testing, I guess it's normal to see things unpatched on internal networks. That happens more often than not, I guess you'd say. But seeing things on the internet that is unpatched is like, with something this bad, it's fairly uncommon. And it's easy to think like, well, you know, most people do patch, and if they don't patch, they get owned. So to actually see people not patching is like, I guess, a really interesting wake-up call. So here we are. Let's grab this little search string. You can see it now, right? Yeah, okay. Get the mouse working. People always confuse the search and scan on this, which always is funny when you come back to it and see a bunch of scans. So here is the list of unique IP addresses in New Zealand that have not patched that Citrix exploit yet. We haven't censored it because I figure at this point, if you haven't patched it, well, it's too late. Someone's already seen it. These aren't magical, like, secret hacking techniques. We just IP scanned New Zealand. So if you do see a name in here you recognize and you can maybe talk to someone about patching that, that would be really ideal. Some of the scan dates are from, you know, a week ago, something like that. I think a lot of them are quite recent. And so this is the kind of thing that we found when building this project. And I think it's one of the real wake-up calls. You know, we can all go on a Shodan safari and look at this, but seeing it in New Zealand, I don't know, like for me it's a real, I don't know, it feels bad in a way, but also like good that we get to see it. There's a lot of conflicted feelings. How do you feel about it?
I don't know, like, patch your shit.
Yeah, that's pretty simple.
Oh yeah, and the other thing we saw, there was so many like default IIS pages, like.
Yeah, we do have a lot of default IIS.
I don't know why people just like load it up and just do nothing with it.
One of the last things we'll show, just because I think we're running out of time, is what services are really common. So most popular services. This might be a little bit hard to see, but I guess I'll read it out as I go. So to be clear, this isn't exactly an exhaustive scan for various reasons, but we do see that Nginx is really popular, but straight under that, one of the other most popular things in New Zealand is a Dratic router with over 4,000 of them accessible on the internet. And I guess that's the kind of thing where you're like, did some ISP roll out these Dratics and just like not firewall them off or anything? Yeah. What else is interesting in here? The MikroTik bandwidth test server.
Oh, yeah.
There are almost 3,000 instances of that in New Zealand. I don't know. These are the kind of stats that I really enjoy digging into because it gives you a real good idea of where specific failings are in New Zealand. I don't know, so it's fun.
Yeah, cool.
Is there any more stats you want to show?
No, that's probably good. I think our time's good.
Cool. Let me get my mouse. Do we have any more slides?
One more.
Oh, yeah, we do have one more. We're done. I guess we are running out of time, so if you have any questions or comments, see us after. Otherwise, thank you.
Yeah.